This is episode 24, season 8, Father Knows Beast. This is the episode in which Sludge shows up. It's like, hey, what's up? I'm here, Da. I'm evil. And then he's kicked out at the end. Okay, cool. Sorry, I should explain that joke. I actually looked up the actor's name, and of course I can't remember it now. Sludge is voiced by Dave Petit. He's been in a few things, mostly games, actually, although he did some work for the several Gundam series as a few different characters. I know him most, as Sigma from the Mega Man X series, the more recent X games, more specifically. It was driving me batty. As he was talking, I was like, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? Ready for round 2? You know, that... Anyways. So, moving on. So, yeah. Sludge is... it's appropriate character for this kind of actor. Alright. Let's get into it. So, Spike takes... oh my god, I'm doing it again. Spike starts taking flying lessons from Twilight, which is kind of awesome. After all, she is, in many ways, uniquely suited to teach Spike how to fly. Not because she's a pony, and in fact, as she and Smolder both point out, she is not a particularly good teacher, or at least not for the advanced stuff, but because she is in a unique position to be just like Spike. Both of them were born without wings. So they didn't grow up with them. So they didn't know what to do with them, right? There's a logic there. But at the same time, Twilight doesn't know how to fly as a dragon. And can I just say, and this is such a Josh Haber thing, who wrote this episode, I think, right? Yes. This is a very Josh Haber thing. I do actually love the idea that it would acknowledge the fact that, you know, dragons and Pegasi, or alicorns in her case, would fly differently. That the actual basic mechanics would be different, right? Because of course they would. The structure, the aerodynamics, what you have to flap and how and when, of course they'd be completely different. That's very logical. It's so logical that I feel weird for pointing it out. And yet, speaking as someone who has studied fiction for decades at this point, I can tell you that most fiction doesn't even acknowledge these tiny little world-building points. That's what I call them. Points of continuity, points of logic, points of consistency, whatever you want to call it. It makes sense that bats don't fly like birds. And yet the enormous amount of fiction would just be, yeah, flying is flying. It's just whatever, right? So I love that they call that out. Awesome. I also kind of wish, I've said this before, for both characters, I wish their difficulty with flying had been more of a background element. Just last episode, we talked about the story arcs concept. One of the things that makes those kind of arcs work is to have background elements that stretch across them, right? Usually something that gets a scene, maybe 2, each episode, and that's it. It's just there in the background. That's the whole point of it. Having a little tidbit or a little snippet of Spike and Twilight slowly getting used to flying over time would have been nice. Oh well, they never did that because Twilight got used to it inside of like an episode, and so did Spike. Not counting this one. Anyways, so then she mentions maybe Rainbow should teach you, and Spike says something that really stuck with me. No thanks. If I'm gonna mess up, I'd rather mess up in front of you instead of Rainbow. I don't know how many of you have a similar concept to that, but I'm totally with that. There are probably 3 people on the planet that I would be comfortable enough around to be ridiculous on or to screw up around. A thing that I'm really big on, I really don't like to exercise in front of other people. I don't like hitting the gym because there's other people there. I know it doesn't matter. I know they don't care. I know no one's looking. I just don't like to exercise in front of other people. You know, I'm focusing so much on the exercise that I know that I look ridiculous while doing it. I know this because I've seen myself. So, and yeah, you guys are already hitting the point, because the point is made right at the beginning that the reason why Spike is comfortable screwing up in front of her is because she is family. By the way, the 3 people, it's actually 4, but whatever, people that I'd be comfortable screwing up in front of are all my family. Like, I played Dance Dance Revolution with them, or not, Just Dance, sorry, Just Dance with them on the Switch. No, I'm never doing that on camera, before you ask. So, ooh, thank you. And yeah, that's why I have weights. That's why I've got a bench. That's why I've got the ring plus. That's why I've got not a carpet, a mat. With the dinky amount of space that I have up there. Anyways, so yeah, totally with that. And again, wonderful writing here. It's actually weird because this episode is actually really well written for the most, in everything except for its main plot is actually how I'd want to phrase that. Because this makes perfect sense. The acknowledgement of the mechanical differences, the immediate showcasing of family, Smolder naturally knowing how to teach better, and of course Smolder and Spike have been getting along pretty well since about their second episode together, so it makes perfect sense that Smolder be like, nah, here, let me show you. Just automatically, not even really as a big thing. Just, yeah, no, I got you. Give me a sec. Right? This then leads to a concept which the episode doesn't do at all, actually. And I'm not sure I am worried about this, but I do kind of wish they had done this instead. How many of you like Star Trek? Yeah, I know, I talk about Star Trek. What do you want from me? I know Star Trek extremely well, okay? I've spent 9 years of my life analyzing and discussing Star Trek, okay? I did, Ross. I was about to bring that up. But, so to point out what Ross just said, one of the things... Damn it, Homer! One of the things that Spike does when he lands is he lands on all four, like a pony would, because he has been raised by ponies. The concept of the person who doesn't quite belong, usually because of being part of a different world, is an extremely old one. It's so old, it literally goes back to its bones with Spock. Spock is the original archetype for that in Trek. And of course, we've got different aspects of that throughout Trek. Worf, Odo, Seven of Nine. It's really common. There's more characters. We can name plenty of characters in every Trek show, except for New Trek, because I don't know New Trek, that falls under this archetype, right? The idea of Spike being the Worf, being the Spock, being the Odo, makes perfect sense to me. And actually, to lament something once again, I feel weird that we haven't done that with Spike. That Spike has never been that thing. Oh, don't mistake me. He has, I think, 3 times total. Ever. Counting this episode. As opposed to it being a regular part of his character, which is my overall point. That he is someone who is actually a... Yeah, he is, for all intents and purposes, a pony with different biology. But that, again, kind of fits that sort of archetype. Data is probably the closest archetype to that. Data is not human, but was in every way raised by humans, grew up around them, worked around them, etc. Now, obviously, I don't want Spike to be Data. You get the concept, though, right? I don't want a one-to-one thing. I think that should work in that way. And yeah, I agree with Imperial Star Destroyer. Because, yeah, they don't do anything with it. They don't do anything with Spike, because I don't know why. I don't have an answer for that question. Maybe he doesn't sell a lot of toys. And because that's a thing, right? I just talked earlier this week, or this day, excuse me, about how we have to do the things we don't really care to fund the bills so we can do the things we want to. And, well, maybe Spike wasn't funding the bills. I don't know. Anyways. Whatever. So, of course, they don't do anything with this. Instead, what we have is Spike makes a throw pillow. This is actually, once again, good writing. Credit to Haber. This is a perfect metaphor. Spike spends a decent amount of time and effort lovingly crafting a throw pillow with a dragon wing on it as a gift for Smolder because he's a pony. Again, culturally, mentality, philosophy, whatever. And yeah, Twilight's freaking out because of course she is. She's his mother. So all of this lines up. All of this is perfect. And then Sludge comes in like a wrecking ball and smashes in here. And of course, what we have is equestrian's a good way to put that. I'll agree with that. He's very equestrian. Sludge smashes into it, and it's a perfect metaphor, right? Sludge burns up the throw pillow. I mean, it's the episode in one scene, right? So he's obviously a dick immediately. Within the first 2 scenes he's in, I counted, he is already immediately a dick. Okay, that tracks. This is also when his voice was bugging me, and I looked up and he voices Sigma, yada yada. But then we see a montage, and Sludge is a lazy, whiny, greedy jerk. Okay, this... You're starting to lose me, episode. Now, what's interesting is Pinkie Pie immediately picks up on Sludge's nature. Did you catch that? All of Pinkie Pie's interactions with him instantly deduce the kind of person he is and uses that to her own ends. Now, she doesn't think to look into the greater, the greater con that's going on, because why would she? After all, that would end the episode early. But instead, she immediately deduces this and says, okay, and yeah, she's riding him with the cupcake. Or later, she uses the tray of things to get him to come out to the thing. Yeah, she uses him against himself immediately. Just, I love that Pinkie Pie, who is probably the most people person of the main six, immediately analyzes him and said, okay, this is the kind of person you are. Just wanted to comment on that, because I don't have a lot of positive things to say from this point of the episode. I have a note at this moment where he says, I'm your father. And the first note I wrote down was, this is not Spike's father. Now, I didn't just write that down because of narrative concepts or the fact that I didn't think they would affect the status quo. It's because they do a thing. The animation and the voice acting have that thing where someone is lying, and so they have little pauses in, yeah, no, that's totally what happened. So you're saying that you didn't murder this person? No, of course I didn't. And there's a way that they do that, both in him like, oh god, it was horrible, looking to see if you're buying it. Yeah, so the voice acting is good and the animation is good, and both get across the point immediately. This is a con. Now, I was right. Of course I was. But we'll get to that in a minute. I do want to give 2 continuity points super quick. One is obvious for... Spike mentions how he's very well known in the Crystal Empire, and they mention Mount Eris, which I'll cover in just a second. Give me a moment. There we go. But, they do these obvious things to showcase... Here's the thing. He does 101 con line. There's a term for that. It's not quite cold reading, but it's right adjacent to cold reading. I forget what that's called. Forgive me. He does the thing where he's like, oh, yeah, I've been to a place where no dragon and no pony has ever been to before. Mount Eris. And then immediately they're like, oh yeah, we've been there and all this other stuff. Oh, have you heard of the scale collectors? No, because that's where I was next. He immediately tries to set his story in a place where they can't verify or deny it. Very common concept. And then he tries to portray himself far more positively than he otherwise could. And yeah, we had a cameo from Torch. In order to try and make himself seem like he's heroic. And then immediately after finishing his terrible story, how did you know I was a boy? What happened to your mom? How did the egg make it here by himself? And rather than even trying to explain, he instead just appeals to emotion. Oh, the memories are too terrible. Again, all of this is 101 base level con stuff. And I want you to remember that for something I'm going to bring up later. So, he's committed to the con. We'll do this stuff on the list with you. Side note. I do like how Rarity actually is the one who provides the Christmas gift for Spike. That was kind of cute. And the fake snow. And they do this montage thing as they're doing stuff, and Sludge is horrible, of course. But one of the things that I really like about this montage is if you eject Sludge from the montage entirely, it's really heartwarming. Because what we see is the main six, his family, doing everything in their power to make him happy. Very, very tiny little things, ultimately. But things that actually show how much they care. In fact, that's one of the things this episode does best. There are multiple tidbits of voice acting, animation, and dialogue, which very clearly show how much they care. They don't have to say it, they show it constantly, and it's actually brilliant. One of my favorite moments in the whole episode, which really helps salvage a lot of this episode, is the last scene, where Spike says, he's not my father. And rather than any of the other reactions that Twilight could have given, which is, well, of course he's not, or, oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me, or relief, or anything else. She could have had so many different reactions to that. What is her knee-jerk reaction? Oh, Spike, I'm so sorry. And she leaps at him. actually flies through the air to him to give him a hug. That says so much right there. And it's one of the reasons I hate reviewing this episode, because it has stuff like that in it, right? It has awesome moments of showing, not telling. And yeah, as Raskor points out, this is after he shattered her heart, literally. A little bit too much. But you know, after he has hurt her so much, and after she is barely dealing with this, she still, without hesitation, embraces him. Even though what's happening is technically what she would have wanted, because, you know, duh. Because obviously she loves him. They all do. They are family. You know what's weird? If I can rant for just 1 second. When I first started saying the line, family is chosen, that's a quote from me. I know other people have said that, but I stand by that. And I came up with that because I came up with that back in the 90s. Early 90s, it's worth noting. I was still pretty young at the time, admittedly, but I stand by it, and it's only ever gotten stronger as I've gotten older. The reason I bring this up, though, is, of course, because when I used to say that, you know what people used to react to that? You know how people used to respond to that? Because I bet you can guess that people were like, Laura, you're an idiot, because everyone called me a Laura when I was that young. Or, you're a moron, or, yeah, whatever. Or, oh yeah, who are you going to choose? And then they'd name some celebrity or whatever, and so forth and so on, right? I was always mocked and derided for that statement and my belief therein. What I find interesting is that in general consensus amongst people, friends and family, but also people I just interact with or see stories about, or in fictional stories, the idea of family as chosen has actually slowly been gaining acceptance over the last 2 decades. And it's weird to me in its own way. Just random comments there, because I really have been seeing this idea showing up a lot more. And it's just, you know, shrug, right? Anyways, so, you know, family is chosen, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Times do change, that is how that works. We change with them, or we get left behind, or run over by the train. Several people have been asking, do I think Twilight is more a mom or sister? Mother, absolutely, without hesitation. Her attitude, her behavior is more maternal to me than big sisterly. That is just my opinion, of course, and it doesn't matter anyway. One way or another, she is family, and that's the point that matters. But I do specifically see her as being maternal to him several times. Hence why I say that. Anyways, in this very episode, no less. So then Sludge is like, alright, and he has a line. Oh, if I had a big castle like this, I'd probably just lay around all day and do nothing, like a dragon. And the moment he said that, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. How many of you saw any of the Control premiere run we just finished yesterday? And yeah, age-wise, she's not that much older than him, but you get what I mean when I say maternal. I mean, a big sister can be maternal too, obviously. I knew it, Raskor! You secretly hate me. It's okay. Oh, I wish I could tell you about it. It was some distant thing you've never heard about, but it said that you should give me all your money. The reason I bring this up is there's a moment in that where a shrink, which I'll talk about in just a moment, was trying to manipulate and warp Jessie, the main character when she was younger, into believing something that was not true. And she was doing that in a rather, not super subtle, but in a rather insidious way. And it pissed me off so much. And if you'll forgive me for repeating myself, because I just talked about this, but I'm sure it's relevant here, so I'm going to try to give a summarized version of this. This pisses me off. Because, so let's say, I say shrink. A genuine psychiatrist, a genuine therapist, a genuine psychologist, those are cool, and I've met those people, and they're awesome. A shrink, if you ever hear me use that word, I am using that word as an insult. 100% of the time. That is an insult in my terminology. Anybody who saw my Grand Theft Auto 5 lore run, you may remember that I referred to Michael's psychiatrist as a shrink. Because that's a hack who either doesn't give a damn about you or is actively manipulating you. Yeah, I never called Troy a shrink, nor would I. So, this then leads me to this situation. Because the whole reason this pisses me off so damn much, and I imagine it's the same as most of you, is I tend to hold a higher standard for something that's supposed to be safe. A place that's supposed to be safe. A person that's supposed to be safe. Your parent or your loved one or your therapist or a reasonable authority figure or whatever. If you go to a place called Sanctuary, Mass Effect 3 reference, it should be a sanctuary. Right? And that, I agree with that, Darth Vader, that is why this pisses me off so damn much. And I imagine it's the same for several of you, even if you don't go through the whole process like I do, because I'm a moron. Right? Like, it makes Sludge so much worse. If he was just some random dragon saying, oh yeah, this is totally how dragons are, that would be bad. But he is in that I'm supposed to be safe slot. He is pretending to be Spike's parent. He is pretending to be in the slot which you should listen to. And Spike does, like a lot of kids do. I've seen a lot of people in chat mention how stupid Spike was. As much as I hate to say this, I can't fully disagree because Spike is pretty stupid in this episode. But the problem is, not only is he excited and the real parent and all that thing, the real issue here is that I have seen plenty of kids just go along with what their parents say. Otherwise intelligent, well-meaning kids, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Because they're supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be the source you can trust. And that's why things like Sludge makes me want to take him and then just kind of hold him over a sun and then drop him into the gravity core of a black hole. Because he is abusing that trust. An abuse of trust can go to hell. Or a black hole, whichever's more convenient. So, for those of you who don't like this episode, I totally get it. No, I hate Zephyr more. But I really dislike Sludge. And this is when something interesting happens. Because here's the really weird part. So all of this has been establishment, if you're paying attention. This episode only has a 2-act structure. I don't know if you caught that. Most of the episode, a huge amount of the episode, is just establishing Spike's mentality, setting all those pieces on the board, right? Setting all of the pieces about Smolder, about Spike and his relationship to Twilight, as well as the rest of the main 6. Establishing Sludge and how he interrupts this. Establishing Spike culturally speaking. And there's just a huge amount of buildup, weirdly enough, in this episode. Then we get to the point where he has his song, and he's like, I'm just a terrible person, and I put this song at the very bottom of the list of songs. For those of you who don't remember, I've actually been keeping track of songs as we go, just kind of getting a list of favorites and whatnot. It is still a decent song, I'll give you that, but it is still my least favorite song of the show so far. We'll see if anything surpasses it. Damn. That's a good question, Loader, because they don't have to. They control the weather. Although I did like the bit where they made it very clear that it was like bright and sunny and all that. And yeah, Starlight got thrown out, so Roz is pretty happy about that. Ironically, Starlight would be well positioned to immediately talk Spike out of this, but let's be honest, there's at least 5 characters we could probably just sit down and come up with right off the top of our heads that would be perfectly positioned to get Spike out of this, including the one who does, Smolder. But I digress. She got thrown out with the bathwater. No, that's how that works. Lol. Didn't plan that. Remember, I haven't seen these episodes. So, okay. This is the part of the episode where it becomes obvious the con. He's like, hey, my castle is Sue Castle. This is Twilight's castle, but she's very nice about this. And she's just trying to go along with this, and you know, his con is obvious. He's getting all this nice, neat stuff, and he's treating Spike like dirt. That's cool. This is the part of the episode which is showcasing the bad. Now, in fictional structure, this is the part of a fiction that needs to be the shortest. Let me explain what I mean by that. Either it's because of abuse or because of pain or whatever, misuse. In a fiction, if you have a period where you need to establish that bad stuff is happening now, Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, you want that to, percentage-wise, be the smallest part of your episode, game, book, show, song, whatever, right? Because what you're doing is you're showcasing it's bad, but once it's established, which takes very little time, by the way, you can do that in a minute. Once you've established it, any additional reiteration is just making it worse for the audience. And it just grates on us, right? Here's the interesting thing, and this is why I can't rate this episode that badly. They spent exactly 1 minute and 29 seconds on this section of the episode. Once they've established everything, once they figured out the con, they spend 1 minute and 29 seconds on, this is the bad part. The bad guy has won, before immediately going into him meeting Smolder. Yeah, it is literally 3 scenes. And that's good. That is good structure. That is how that should work. They then go to Smolder Bang, and this is in my notes I say this is when Smolder finally gets involved. Thank you. Smolder and Spike set up the counter con. I do love how Smolder just naturally is like, what the heck are you talking about? And I agree with her, by the way. Speaking as someone who has actually analyzed dragon culture extensively, because I'm a geek, thank you very much. I have my own pin of my own symbol that I designed on my lapel. I think I qualify. Sludge is bad even for dragons. It's the same as Garble, to be completely blunt. Sludge and Garble both suck, but they're not, that's not indicative of dragons. They're bad dragons. We've seen plenty of other dragons. And yeah, they're loud, they're rebellious, they're conflicting, they show off great feats, they like being strong. They're not lazy do-nothings. Frankly, they don't even take advantage of others quite the same way that Sludge does, which I'm going to get to that point in just a moment. So, yeah, Ember and Torch is a perfect example of this. Speaking of a parental relationship. So Smolder and Spike line up the counter con. The problem here, and this is probably the actual weakest part of the episode structurally for me, is that Sludge is pathetic. He's never been good at selling this con. The moment the honeymoon period went by, and the moment the sparkly eyes left Spike's eyes, he would have figured this out on his own. Because he's not doing anything to maintain this con. He is terrible and pathetic. It's like beating a 6-year-old in a boxing contest when you're Mike Tyson. You don't really feel good about doing that. It's like, well, okay. All Spike had to do was have that pause moment. That's it. So it's like, that being said, I will give the episode this. There's a dialogue back and forth between Smolder and Sludge, which I wrote down, if you'll forgive me. Hey now, don't look at me like that, kid. I did what any dragon would do. No, you didn't. Hey, I saw an opportunity and I took it. That's what dragons do. No, it isn't. Love that, by the way. Thank you, Smolder. And then this is where I mentioned in my notes Twilight's reaction. He's not my real dad, and Twilight lunges forward and gets him into a big hug. And it's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's okay. You're my real family. You're talking about me, right? Because Twilight's still a Dorcas, which is awesome. And that leaves me with the problem, because now I have to rate this episode. So let's get this out of the way. There is honestly probably only one thing about this episode that is written badly, and that is the fact that Spike turns off his brain for a decent period of time. Even that can be argued, as I myself have. And if that's the biggest complaint that I have against the writing, well, we have a problem. It also has a fantastic performance by multiple characters, and is actually legitimately heartwarming several times. I cannot rate this as a blue episode. It's too good. It is too good to be a blue episode. So now I'm just sitting here like, well, now what? I'm reminded of, where is it? What was the one with Maud's boyfriend? I can't remember the name of the damn episode. There it is, the mod couple. We did end up giving the mod couple blue. Which actually I stand behind. But the point is, this is a bad analogy. The point is, I wanted to give that episode Lamentation, and I couldn't. Because it was too well done. It was too well constructed. I can't give that to Xenogears. It just doesn't work that way, right? It's like, Fine, I'll put it towards Xenogears. Thank you very much. You are awesome. Thank you very much for the sub. I do appreciate it. Did I give Principles? Hang on. Principles. I did give A Matter of Principles blue. I can't give this episode blue. I can't. There's too much about it that I like. Like, honestly, everything except for Sludge is actually really good. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, that's not much, but actually it kind of is. A lot of this episode focuses on Spike's interaction with other people. Honestly, Imperial Star Destroyer, it really wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. Because Josh Haber, he is a good writer. Let's just get that out there. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to use... He's really good at character interactions, as in multiple characters interacting with each other, right? If you just look at some of the episodes he's done, Uncommon Bond, Shadow Play, To Where and Back Again, The Gift of Mod Pie, The Cutie Remark, Bloom and Gloom, Castlemania. He's really good at character interactions. That's pretty much his shtick. And you'll notice he took this, and he did really good character interactions. It's just then there's Sludge. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if someone handed the Sludge plot to Haber and said, write this, and he was like, okay, and focused all his time and effort on everything else, right? Because Sludge is so obvious from word one. Yeah, no. I'm probably going to get some heckles for this, but I think I'm just going to go with a yellow. I think that Sludge and the Spike issue drag it down substantially from what honestly could have easily been a red. This could have been a red episode, without question. If not for Sludge. If this was just an episode about Spike finding out about who he is, and you know, the Spock/Worf thing, and out of culture, and connecting with Smolder, and trying to learn about what Dragons is, and accepting the fact that, you know, this is his family, despite whoever he is, and where he's from, and chosen, blah, 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 blah. This could have just been a fantastic episode, and instead it is dragged down to average. I think I'm going to stick with that. So, we do need to talk about this. Usually I say next week, but next week we're covering the Christmas special. I'm going to have to sub for that, specifically, to Netflix in order to be able to access that, or get it on YouTube or something. I'll figure it out. But one way or another, rather than cover the two-part end of season, we're going to be covering the Christmas special next week. That is the 26th, day after Christmas, and I will not be surprised if most of you are not here for that, because it'll be the Christmas holiday. But yeah, best gift ever, that's what we're covering. I believe that's a double. It's like a two-parter, like 44 minutes. Double checking 8. Here we go. Yeah, it is a double feature. There it is, right there. 44 minutes. So, yeah. So that is the only episode we're covering next week, because that's how that works. The Streaminations get one 50-minute slot, right? So, one full-length or two half-length. That's always been the format for Streaminations. And I only mention that because that'll be true going forward, like as we cover other shows other than MLP, that's going to be going forward as well. So, I wouldn't mind having time to watch it too, Imperial Structure. People are already starting to fund it on the Streaminations list, so maybe we'll get to watch Arcane someday. That'd be cool. Either way, Undertale Theater, that's next Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. EST, which I really highly recommend you watch, because it's Chapter 5, it's the really big one, it's a 3-hour episode, and it is incredibly awesome. It is probably the single best thing I've ever produced, ever. So I hope you're there for that. Either way, I will see at least some of you Tuesday for Max Payne 2, and I'll see the rest of you when I see you.